Well, year after year, the World Economic Forum brings together some of the world's biggest leaders, the biggest thinkers. It's an opportunity to reflect on some of the biggest concerns around the world, the biggest opportunities around the world. And who better to start off our World Economic Forum programming than the president of the World Economic Forum, Borge Brende. Thank you very much, Mr. Brende, for being with us. India has a huge presence at the WEF every year. And one of the primary themes, of course, is growth. You would have seen the latest numbers. India just under 7%. But among large nations and growing nations, it is still quite formidable. So how would you look at the India growth story first up?
So India has a great potential, and it is still growing pretty well, maybe 5.5%, 6% this year. But there is no reason why India cannot pick up again and do 7-8%. Of course, provided that there are reforms when it comes to investments, reforms also in infrastructure, reforms in investing in education and R&D. We do expect that in a few years, India will be 20% of the overall global growth.
Yeah,
that is quite incredible. And what works also for India is the enormous strength in startups. There's more than 120,000 startups in India. I think is more now than 120 unicorns. So that ecosystem, I think, is the basis also for future growth.
India has targeted 2047 to become a developed nation. Do you believe that's realistic? Do you believe it can be achieved?
I think India will be a $10 trillion US dollar economy pretty soon. What also works in the interest of India is that trade is now pivoting more towards digital trade and services. That's growing 3 times faster than traditional goods. And these are areas where India is very strong.
You've come out with lots of fantastic reports in the last couple of weeks. You do this every single year ahead of the World Economic Forum Annual General Meeting. You deal with the future of employment and jobs. What are some of the key challenges or opportunities that you see with greater digitalization of the workforce?
So it's increased productivity. And productivity is like producing more with less resources. And of course, this will challenge some jobs that are back offices today or other jobs. But if that can lead to people moving into areas where you produce higher up in the value chain, you can pay better, you can produce more, and that's prosperity. So for India, there are, of course, huge opportunities when it comes to the new technologies. But short term, it also creates challenges because one has to upskill and reskill people.
One of the big concerns is, of course, climate. And that's another big agenda this time around. The world isn't really doing very well in trying to stick to that 1.5 degrees centigrade and below that. How is that a primary driver in your thought process at WEF this year?
It's incredibly important. And I think you just came back from Los Angeles. You saw the wildfires.
Absolutely.
We have seen droughts. We know that agriculture production of food is being more challenged now because there are areas there you can just grow what you used to grow. So in general, I would say that the cost of inaction far exceeds the cost of action when it comes to climate change. So we need to keep up the momentum. We will need to emit less CO2 in the years to come to even be able to stick to a 2% degree target. And that, of course, means a lot, especially to those countries that are most vulnerable. And those are often countries that have emitted the least CO2 traditionally, being African countries, but also including India, that already has seen so much heat waves and have seen the cost of this.
Artificial intelligence, that's also a key issue. There's the entire issue of artificial intelligence and regulation, because artificial intelligence can be potentially dangerous as well. There's the entire issue of access as well. Going forward and looking beyond the technology to policy, who decides?
I think humans should be on top of the algorithms and not the algorithms on top of humans. And AI has a lot of potential, but it can also get out of control. If you have billions of algorithms reproducing other algorithms, and you combine that with quantum computing in the future. Quantum computing is like you can then get through all the security walls you have today. That's very negative. At the same time, you can use AI in detecting cancer, in health, in more cost-effective way of, for example, dealing with energy. You can see breakthroughs that we haven't seen in generations. So maybe AI at least is as consequential as the computers, as the intranet. Some people even claim as electricity. The jury is still out, but let's make AI work in the interest of humankind. And there we also should establish some traffic rules.
Sure. You've come out with a report looking at some of the biggest global threats. We've identified, obviously, we've identified climate conflict is also a huge issue. But then there is misinformation and disinformation. We live in a social media era. You've got huge companies like Meta now having a rethink as far as fact checkers are concerned. Statistically and otherwise, how does misinformation and disinformation have a profound impact on billions around the world?
It has profound impact. The challenge is that if you look at social media and take it with a pinch of salt, then you're fine. Unfortunately, a lot of people read on social media and they think it's an editor that has edited it, so it's fact-checked. But you have to read and follow social media and say, okay, this is maybe just an input, this is maybe not correct. So I think we also have to have a change in our mindset. But we have seen in elections, but also on a lot of important topics like vaccination and etc. There's a lot of myths out there created by social media, and we just have to discuss it very openly. And the wrong things that are and not fact-based things in social media, we have to fight.
Just two more questions. Today's a day of great hope when you look at West Asia. The fact that you've got the hostage swap taking place, or not the hostage swap, the release of hostages for prisoners from Israel. Conflict obviously has hit our world profoundly over the last few years. I mean, it was COVID and then this. Are you optimistic that this is the beginning of what should be a more lasting peace in West Asia?
I hope so. I think the hostage deal and the ceasefire in Gaza is positive. Let's see how it unfolds now in Syria, but hopefully there will be a more inclusive solution there too. We also have to hope that there is no escalation between Israel and Iran. If that was to happen, I think that would also have very negative impact on global growth. In general, the geopolitical backdrop that we are faced with is not as beautiful as this and sunny. It's probably the most challenging geopolitical backdrop in generations. So I think we need to learn also to deal with that, because before cooperation was kind of the basis of interaction. Today it's competition. So countries will compete in a very severe way, especially G2, being China and US, but also other nations. But even in a world where countries compete, there will need to be areas where you then also collaborate when it comes to dealing with future pandemics, the algorithms and AI, cybercrime, and also climate change, as we already mentioned. These are challenges that don't stop with the country's border, they're transboundary.
A final question, a huge change coming up day after tomorrow, tomorrow in fact, in the United States, the Trump administration. So much of the world and global policies depend on that. How does the World Economic Forum look at the change of guard in the United States?
I think Trump 2.0 will have as much impact as Trump 1.0. And we will also be privileged to listen to President Trump here in Davos on Thursday, where he will make a speech, but also interact live with some key CEOs. I think he will act fast on the immigration side. He will insist on stopping illegal immigration, but I think still he will as also Elon Musk has underlined,
Yeah.
he will need to get engineers and people that apply
Yeah.
for then a visa or a green card also in the future, because that's part of the American kind of fabric.
Sure.
But we will also see possible changes when it comes to trade.
Yeah.
But, things are also, Trump can also, surprise.
Yes.
Sometimes
a bit too much.
Yesterday, he had a call with President Xi Jinping
Yes.
of China, and they discussed many topics. That was maybe less predicted that early in the presidency, or even before the presidency.
Yeah.
So for India, though, I think India is in a pretty good position, because in a situation where you'll see more friend-shoring,
Yeah.
people trade more with the countries they like.
Yeah.
Currently, everyone wants to be friends with India.
Yeah.
Of course, there are a few exceptions
Yes.
in the neighborhood,
Yes.
but generally, India can maybe benefit from this too.
Borge Brende, wonderful speaking to you. Thank you
Likewise.
very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, Borge Brende, the president of the World Economic Forum, telling us about so many things, the profound challenges which we face across the world, the incredible opportunities which exist, but also about the India growth story. What are some of the areas India can improve on as we target 2047 and the hope that we become a developed nation?